Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the public meeting for the US 322 Section 103 Improvement Project in Upper Chichester Township, Delaware County. My name is Brad Rudolph. I'm the Deputy Communications Director for PennDOT Engineering District 6. In just a few moments, I'll be handing the meeting over to PennDOT's project team, who will present an update on this improvement project and answer any questions you might have. We ask if you have a question to submit it using the Q&A feature at the top of your screen. Please note the slide number in your question so we can refer to it during the Q&A session. Questions will be answered in the order they were received immediately following the presentation. Tonight's meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the US 322 website at us322conchester.com. Again, thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. I now turn it over to PennDOT's project team to introduce themselves and begin the presentation.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the public meeting for US 322 Section 103 Improvement Project. My name is Merlene St. Val, and I am the PennDOT Project Manager. We also have Alfred Tomaselli, Senior Project Manager with Benish, who will provide design updates, along with Angela Palermo, Project Manager with Aero Land Solution, who will be providing an update on the right-of-way acquisition. Tonight's agenda will cover the project location, the project purpose, design updates, traffic impacts, right-of-way updates, and finally, project timeline. Now, I would like to turn the presentation over to the Design Project Manager, Al Tomaselli, to run through the project details.
Thank you, Merlene. Good evening, everyone. Al Tomaselli with Benish. First, I want to provide you a general overview of the project. As you can see on the screen, this is a photo of US 322 in southern Delaware County. We start our project at Route 1 all the way on the left side of your screen. That is Section 101 in green. It is primarily in Concord Township. That project was constructed between 2016 and 2020 and was finalized and is open as a 4-lane primary arterial right now. Section 102, currently under design, covers mostly in Bethel Township, but also touches into Concord Township and Upper Chichester. And the focus of tonight's presentation is Section 103 on the right side of your screen, which extends from approximately Chelsea Parkway through the 452 or Market Street interchange. There is also a section MIT that you see in blue on the left, which was a mitigation section, which we included a operation staging area to replace the salt shed facility at the Falk Road interchange that currently exists, and a wetland mitigation site in Thornbury Township that addressed wetland impact. Next slide, please. The purpose and need of the project was established early on when we initially started the project and identified 5 major areas it could serve. Number 1, obviously, to reduce crashes. There have been a substantial number of crashes along the corridor. Reduce traffic congestion. If you've driven it once, you understand what that means. There's a lot of traffic along the corridor. Improve access control. By what we mean there is there's a lot of uncontrolled access. So wide sections of pavement along the corridor where vehicles can enter or exit just about anywhere. 4th, accommodate planned growth. If you've driven the corridor, you see a lot of growth out there. There is still more to come, obviously. There are areas to work with, and we wanted to make sure that whatever we did was sustainable for the future. And finally, improve highway geometrics. That's primarily around the interchanges where acceleration and deceleration lanes are minimal, if existent at all. Next slide, please. So as part of this project, we basically were going to widen the roadway to 4 lanes. The image on the right that you see is the first day that Section 101 was open in the area of Station Road. You see 4 lanes, left turn lanes, right turn lanes. You can see a little bit of a median in there in the middle of the picture. That's pretty much the design that's going to go for the entire corridor. There will be a grass strip median with mountable curb on either side. There will be turn lanes for left turns and right turns at intersections, and cul-de-sacs, again, for access management. We're going to improve the geometry at the interchanges, replace all the structures along the corridor, and upgrade the signalization to increase throughput. Next slide, please. Specifically to Section 103, the US 322 corridor will include 1.4 miles of pavement reconstruction. Some of this is going to be just reconstructing the existing 4-lane section in 103. Other sections, it's going to be widening it from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. There are going to be 8 intersections, which are going to be reconstructed as part of Section 103 project, including 4 signalized locations, 1 on 322 and 3 on Market Street. We are going to be reconstructing 22 structures, which are listed below, including bridges, culverts, retaining walls, sound barriers, sign structures, and ADMS sign structures, which is what you see in the image on the right, and then 10 stormwater management facilities. So we are widening the road, which increases the impervious pavement. We have to collect that water and control it and safely release it. Next slide, please. Digging into it a little bit deeper, I'm going to point out a couple locations where major changes are occurring. First, the intersection of US 322 and Cherry Tree Road, Bethel Avenue. The existing intersection, both side roads are about 5 to 7 feet below the elevation of 322. What we're going to do is we're going to improve that geometry by realigning both Cherry Tree and Bethel Avenue to come in at elevation and across from each other so that you can see across the street. The improved geometry will also allow us to add left and right turn lanes and then separate the intersection of Bethel Avenue and Cherry Tree Road on the north side, which intersects almost right at 322. We're going to separate it so that it moves and intersects Cherry Tree across from Hilltop Elementary School. Additionally, we are going to improve the signalization again to increase the throughput. Next slide, please. The other area along 322 is the Market Street interchange. This interchange is a cloverleaf design, which, as you'll see with the revised layout, is going to be a folded diamond interchange. You see, we have increased radii for the ramps, so the curvature of the ramps are going to be a little bit wider, so it's a little bit easier to drive through. We are going to avoid a sensitive property on the northwest quadrant of the interchange, and there is a lot of access management here. There are 2 new township roads that are going to be placed adjacent to 322. In the northwest, or the upper left of the screen, is Garfield Avenue, and in the southeast, or the lower right of the screen, is Conchester Road. That is going to address adjacent properties that were going onto the ramps or right onto 322 are now going to access those roads to get to Market Street and then go to their final destination. Next slide, please. And then the other area that I want to talk about here that's a major upgrade is the Market Street corridor. We are widening the corridor to incorporate left and right turn bays at signalized intersections. And we are adding an additional lane southbound through the interchange intersections, terminating at Meeting House Road. That will increase the throughput and allows the signals to operate at a better efficiency. From an access management perspective, we are also adding curbing at strategic locations to focus the driveway access points along the corridor. Next slide, please. So that goes into the major aspects of the design. So now let's talk about the permitting. There were 2 major permits that we needed to acquire to start this project into construction. First being the joint permit, which is our Section 404 and Chapter 105 permits. The Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection approved the joint permit application in February of 2023. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers approved the permit in December of 2022. The NIPDES permit, or the Chapter 102 permit, was approved by Delaware County Conservation District and Pennsylvania DEP in November of 2022. So all of our permitting is secured for this project. Next slide, please. The utilities. We completed the utilities through PennDOT's URMS system, which is their new utility clearance system. And for everyone's reference, we had about 1,200 utility conflicts that needed to be resolved before we could complete the utility clearance process. 600 of those, so approximately half, are being resolved through relocation of the utility, whether it be utility poles, water lines, sewer lines, etc. 200 of them, once the utility company took a look at it, they identified that they are not affected. 150 of them are resolved by making minor adjustments to either the roadway or to the utility. 150 were resolved by removal of the utility. 50 are being resolved by protecting them in place while during construction. 50 of the utility conflicts have been retired, and utility clearance was provided in July of 2023. So we've crossed the utility hurdle as well. Next slide, please. As part of the project, all residential locations were analyzed for sound barriers. Obviously, with additional traffic, there's going to be additional noise. Highlighted in blue are the 3 areas in section 103 that are receiving sound barriers. The first section, which is in the upper left of the screen, is the Oliver Lane, Bethel Avenue, Cates Glen development. The one adjacent to that to the right is in the area of Capri Circle and Flora Lane. And the one in the image below is the Bethel Avenue, Dutton Street, and around the 322 ramps onto Market Street. All residential properties in these areas and along the corridor that were reasonable, feasible, and warranted were allowed to vote in early 2020 as to whether they wanted to have a sound barrier, and the votes came in that all 3 of those locations did. Next slide, please. So all 3 of those developments, in addition to voting for a sound barrier, were also given a series of options for the aesthetic treatment on the community side of those sound barriers. As determined and voted on by the residents, the Oliver Lane, Bethel Avenue, and Cates Glen development area are getting the ashlar stone brown in the upper left. The Bethel Avenue, Dutton Street, and 322 ramp area for Market Street are going to get the ashlar stone gray in the upper right. The Capri Circle and Flora Lane residents requested the chiseled limestone brown on the bottom. Next slide, please. So that's what it's going to look like on the community side. On the highway side, we're going to have a consistent highway side facade of an open aggregate sound barrier and Virginia creepers coming up like you see on the screen. Pretty much this is what it's going to look like in the long term once the vegetation has grown in. Next slide, please. So how long is this job going to take? Once we have notice to proceed, the first stage that's going to occur is a lot of utility work. As you saw, we have about 1,200 conflicts, and about 600 of them are being relocated. So a lot of utility work and a lot of side road work on Bethel Avenue and Cherry Tree Road is going to occur, along with some work on Market Street. That's going to take about 1.5 years to 2 years to complete. Once we're through that, we are going to build the eastbound lanes on 322, which is the south side of the 322 corridor. In stage 3, we are going to flip traffic onto those future eastbound lanes and reconstruct the existing 322, which will become the westbound lanes. All in all, this job is going to take at least 5 years, potentially up to 6 years to reconstruct, given all the work that needs to be done. Next slide, please. So what's it going to look like out there while we're doing that work? The short answer is it's going to look exactly the way it looked in section 101. US 322 is going to be staged construction, very similar to what you see to the right of the screen. There will be a barrier separating live traffic from the construction workers, and there will be a lot of work going on behind there. Route 452, or Market Street, will also be staged construction with a very minor exception, which we'll discuss on the next slide. And then the other roads will be staged construction or detours, the detours are going to be described further in the following slides. Next slide, please. The major detour of all is going to be the Route 452 at 322. So for 2 weekends over the course of the project, Those 2 weekends will be separated by at least a year. Route 452 or Market Street will be closed for a weekend at 322. All property owners will be able to access their properties. The detours as shown here, if you are going northbound on 452, trying to continue on to 452, you will go on to 322, up by 95, up the blue route or 476, and come down Route 1 to get back onto 452. Southbound traffic will access 452 by going on to 322, going to Falk Road, turning around, and then getting back onto Market Street. Again, these will be weekend detours. They will be open for Monday morning rush hour. Next slide, please. The Bethel Avenue at 322. When I showed you the slide for the 322 on Cherry Tree Road, Bethel Avenue intersection, you saw there was a lot of reconstruction going on there. We're realigning both roads. We're also raising both roads about 5 to 7 feet. To do that work, it involves a lot of earthwork, a lot of utility relocation, and unfortunately, we're not able to keep Bethel Avenue open at 322 for the entire length of that. Having said that, the detour route will take you over to the Market Street interchange, and you'll be able to get to Bethel Avenue from there. Also, as a reminder, we will not be restricting access to any of the properties, so every property will have access during this detour. This detour is anticipated to last about 5 months. Next slide, please. Another location on Bethel Avenue is the Bethel Avenue Bridge at Marcus Hook Creek. Because of the bridge location and the adjacent properties, we're unable to stage that construction as well. That detour will access Bethel Avenue or from either Cherry Tree and 322 or from the Market Street interchange during that time period. We're anticipating that to be a 7-month construction. And again, at all times, property access will be maintained and property owners will be coordinated with through that. Next slide, please. The next detour is Cherry Tree Road. Again, with the elevation differences and the realignment, there will be a very small period of time where we have to detour Cherry Tree Road. We're anticipating this will be approximately a week that needs to be done because it's a smaller section as opposed to the Bethel Avenue area where we have to raise and move a lot. So the detour for that will go on to 322, on to Bethel Avenue, up Chichester Avenue, and over Concord to get back to Cherry Tree Road. Next slide, please. The next couple of slides are going to be a series of detours for ramps at the Market Street interchange. First one here is the eastbound on and off ramps, which we call ramps I&M, but at the area of Dutton Street. These detours will be approximately a month, and that detour route will take you over to the Bethel Avenue interchange or using other ramps at the Market Street interchange as appropriate. Next slide. Again, another ramp here, the eastbound on-ramp and off-ramps that will be removed as part of this project will at one point need to be detoured because we need to do some work to raise the grades to meet the new 322. There'll be approximately a 4-month period where this needs to be done as we're also building 322 in that area. And the rerouting will be using the Market Street interchange ramps on Bethel that come off of Bethel Avenue adjacent to Dutton Street. Next slide. On the westbound side or the north side of the interchange, at one point we do need to close off both westbound on ramps and one westbound off ramp. There will be a detour that will take you onto the new Garfield Avenue alignment and then bring you back onto 322. This will be approximately a 1-month detour, and for the time being, you will use that Garfield Avenue, go to the cul-de-sac at the end of Bethel, and there'll be a temporary roadway to connect you on the 322. Next slide. And then the last detour is Bethel Avenue at Oliver Lane. Because of the widening of 322, Bethel Avenue and Oliver Lane will not be connected in the future. Both sides will be cul-de-saced, and once this is closed, it will not reopen. For the time of traffic control, once we do that closure, we will provide signage to let local residents and those who are not familiar with the area to know how to get to Oliver Lane from Bethel Avenue and vice versa. With that, This concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'll hand it back to Merlin.
Thank you, Al. Next, to provide right-of-way acquisition update is Angela Palermo, Project Manager with Aero Land Solution. Angie?
Thank you, Marlene. So for section 103 of this project, there are a total of 106 parcels impacted. As of November of 2023, PennDOT has completed the acquisition for 101 of those parcels. The remaining 5 parcels are currently advancing through the Delaware County court system. And at this time, PennDOT is awaiting decisions from the Delaware County Court in order to complete the right-of-way acquisition process. Back to you, Marlene.
Thank you, Angela. For the final design project timeline, the department will conduct a series of administrative tasks before construction can begin. Once the right-of-way clearance is issued, finalizing the construction bid package will take approximately 2 weeks. Advertise, solicit contractors' bid is usually a 7-week process. Open bids is 1 day. Award, execute the construction contract will take approximately 8 weeks. Pre-construction meeting with the contractor will be a 1-day event. Contractor notice to proceed will also be a 1-day event. Upon completion of these tasks, construction will begin. This concludes our presentation. We will now take questions via the Q&A button. As Al is queuing up our first question, if you are able to navigate the project webpage, there is a comment form where you can also ask additional questions and provide feedback on the presentation this evening.
So Marlene, the first question is the speed limit of the section expected to be raised after completion of reconstruction? It seems odd that the completed section 101 has the same 45-mile-an-hour speed limit as the non-reconstructed sections, despite being much safer and designed to a better standard. Though it would make sense if the plan is to wait until all sections are complete to avoid short high-speed sections. I would think 50 or 55 miles an hour would be better once it is all done.
Would you mind answering the question?
Sure. So the speed limit of the roadway for the entire Section 100 project is being maintained at 45 or 35 miles an hour based on what the existing speed limit is now. Based on discussions and design criteria, the speed limit could not be raised necessarily without additional adjustments to the corridor following the completion of the project. So the short answer is it'll be maintained to what the existing speed limit is today. Thank you for the question. We have another question here. The question is, so when is the projected start date? Marlene?
So the projected start date will be based on acquiring all of the parcels that are needed for this construction. At this particular point in time, we don't have a specific start date to provide to the public. And the moment that the acquisition is completed, we'll be able to provide that information.
Thank you. We have another question. The next question is, what happened with Section 102?
Section 102, if we can go back to slide number 1, Section 102 is still in existence. The project was split in multiple sections in order to better accommodate a comprehensive construction package. The department made that decision in order for us to keep a certain amount of monetary value associated to the construction package. Section 102 will follow the final design for Section 103.
The next question is, what about stormwater? So when I can take this question if it's okay, Marlene.
Thank you.
The stormwater for the entire corridor is being dictated by control measures provided by reviewing agencies. The permitting agencies, which I discussed in one of the slides here, primarily are Delaware County Conservation District, Pennsylvania DEP, and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. As of the beginning of 2023, slide number 10, yes. As of the beginning of 2023, the reviewing agencies have all reviewed and approved the projected permitting and stormwater management controls for the corridor. So we're ready to roll with that once the right-of-way is addressed. We have another question here, which is, should I hold off adding an addition until construction is completed?
I can answer that question. I would think that's a personal homeowner decision. The department really cannot dictate what a homeowner does in reference to their personal properties. Okay.
The next question that we have, will the lighting be synchronized from 452 to Route 1 during rush hour? The simple answer is yes. The more complicated answer is based on the distances between the signals, it will be synchronized as well as it can be. As I'm sure you all know from driving corridors for a length of time, if there's a little bit too far of a distance between intersections, sometimes the synchronization of the vehicles or the platooning of the vehicles makes it a little bit difficult for us to get the timings just right because some people drive quicker than others and vice versa. However, to the best of our abilities, we will have those intersections synchronized along the corridor. Next question we have here is, what is the construction start and end dates for Section 102?
Section 102 final design will be in accordance to the construction of Section 103. So at this point, we are not able to give you those definitive answers about the dates because we want Section 103 to be in construction prior to letting Section 102.
Thank you, Merlin. We have another question here. The question is the bridge over 452 going to be reconstructed? Yes, the bridge over 452 will be reconstructed. It also will be raised to meet current standards. And that is part of the reason why we have to have those weekend detours of 452 at 322. The style of bridge that is out there existing, the demolition requires us to close 452 for that work. We have another question here. Was there any thought given to sound barriers on 322 between 452 and Cherry Tree on the north side? Yes, all residential communities from Route 1 through the 452 corridor or through the 452 interchange were investigated for sound barriers. There were a series of meetings in early 2020 where the details of those of the analysis were provided to the adjacent residential communities. And if the community did not receive a sound barrier, there was an explanation as to whether it was because of the number of driveways, the proximity of the residential properties, or any other purpose or justification behind that. There are nationalized and standardized criteria that we have to follow, and the residential properties were notified of all that information. There's a question here about how about the 322 entrance onto I-95. Tonight's presentation is for Section 100, which covers from Route 1 to 452, so Market Street. There are projects to the east of this, which we're unable to talk to tonight. It's not within our project scope. there is a question about northbound on 452 needing to go left to east on 322. How many cars fit in the left-hand turn lane? I will not venture a guess off the top of my head, but the analysis that was conducted to identify the length of that left turn bay accounted for the projected traffic that would make that left turn onto Bethel Avenue. So I do not have an exact number, again, off the top of my head. But if you send us an email via the website or a comment via the website, we can more directly answer that question. We have another question. When will property that is already acquired and is slated for demolition undergo demolition? Specifically Bethel Avenue eastbound with garage on 322. Marlene?
Sure, thank you, Al. We don't have the exact date for demolition of the properties that has been acquired. I would appreciate it if you could send the question again via the website, and then that way I can have a better answer for you at a later time.
We have another question. Question is, who will maintain the grass median where it exists? Marlene?
I believe that the maintenance department will be able to maintain the grass median for the state roadways.
There's another question here. Will the project be opened in stages or all at once? As lanes can be open on 452 and 322, and as it is safe to do so and doesn't need to be constantly open and closed, they will be opened. Realistically, it is at the end of the project when all 4 lanes will be open to unrestricted traffic.
This meeting will be recorded and available on the project webpage, as mentioned earlier. Thank you again for joining us tonight, everybody. Good night.